The 2021 legislative session brought some of the biggest progressive victories in Washington state history. Organizations of color across the state were hard at work this session, organizing, advocating, and testifying. At Washington Community Alliance, we focus our efforts this year on 5 key areas: progressive revenue, the HEAL Act, assistance for undocumented Washingtonians, local options for ranked choice voting, and community oversight boards for police. And there were way more incredible bills and victories to celebrate. Here's a roundup of what happened in the legislature this year from some of our phenomenal Community Alliance partners.
For decades, Washington has had the most upside-down tax code in the country. Working class people pay way more in taxes than the wealthiest Washingtonians. But this year, we had 2 huge wins for progressive revenue. Thanks to the leadership of organizations like Balance Our Tax Code, we won a capital gains tax that will tax the rich and bring in $500 million to fund childcare. And the Working Families Tax Credit will give direct cash to 1 in 6 households in Washington state. This is a big step to make sure that the wealthy contribute their fair share and all Washingtonians have the support they deserve.
We passed the HEAL Act. That's the Healthy Environment for All Act, which finally builds environmental justice right into state law. Big corporations have polluted for profit for many decades and made working class, brown, indigenous, black, white, all Washingtonians pay the price in worth health outcomes. More than anything, this will make it more accessible for our communities to participate in conversations and decision-making when it comes to addressing the climate crisis. Here in Yakima, it'll mean that the sovereignty of the Yakima Nation will be secured and folks in the Valley won't be left behind in the green economy for the future.
Undocumented workers in our state have always been excluded from social programs like unemployment insurance and federal COVID funding, despite paying taxes like everyone else. But this year, we want some revolutionary changes. The state budget for the next 2 years now includes an unprecedented $340 million for immigrant community. And the state has committed to running a study on an unemployment insurance program for undocumented workers.
Ranked choice voting makes elections more fair for everyone, especially communities of color. This year, we fought to make it an option for local elections across Washington. And while that bill didn't pass, we made huge progress in raising awareness about how ranked choice voting supports the voting rights of communities of color. And now our coalition is working to bring it to King County.
Last summer, more people than ever before took to the streets in protest across Washington, demanding an end to police brutality. For the first time, instead of police writing reform for themselves, it was us, the community, crafting the policies to hold them accountable. We helped craft the first statewide standard for community-led oversight boards to make sure every community in Washington could hold their local police departments accountable. While this bill didn't pass, it provided a framework that anyone can use to pass real oversight in their city, town, or county.
This year in Washington, we had some of the biggest victories in police reform. We'll now have a majority community board to decertify bad officers and independent investigations for uses of deadly force. Our communities won bans on no-knock warrants and chokeholds and made it mandatory for cops to intervene when they see other cops breaking the law.
Thanks to the work of Columbia Legal Services and WISN, Washington removed the restrictions that have kept our undocumented community from accessing civil legal aid. In addition, we were able to add a proviso into the state budget where community clinics will have access to funding to provide more services to undocumented adults.
In 2020, we worked with Washington Can to pass a ballot measure in federal way, making sure landlords could not evict tenants without just cause. And this year, we took that policy statewide and won just cause protection for all tenants in Washington state.
And that's not to mention winning the closure of the Immigrant Detention Center in Tacoma, restoring voting rights to formerly incarcerated people, making sure insurance companies covered gender-affirming care, and so much more that was made possible by everyday Washingtonians demanding change. Washington Community Alliance is continuing the work by organizing at the local level, including fighting for new political districts that protect voting rights of people of color, supporting candidates of color, and more. Our statewide multiracial coalition is gaining momentum. We are joining voices into a chorus that cannot be ignored. Get connected to join in.